Hello YouTube. My investigation of the Phobos mysteries has been conducted since the time the Soviet probe was destroyed or abducted in 1989 near Mars. You can read about it in my books, see in my videos, listen to the interviews on Coast to Coast and elsewhere. From time to time, I like to present updates because the governments and certain scientists around the world know what Phobos is. An ancient and active outpost of extraterrestrial civilization. Please see the playlist of my previous videos on the subject. I'll put it in the description to this video. Today I want to present some more recent developments and ideas circulating out there. And I want to start with Russia. I have presented information posted by a brilliant, relatively young Russian space exploration scientist, former graduate of the prestigious Можайский Military Space Academy, Department of Radio Electronic Systems of Space Complexes. Former military years of service that he had was from 1997 to 2013. Probably he also served with Russia's space intelligence too. And by the way, GRU members are also studying in that academy. He is cool, he's very knowledgeable, and I find it fascinating that he decided to post his views on Phobos and that he supports those who vehemently deny that Phobos is an artificial object. This tells me a lot about international efforts to reach it and to make sure that most of the terrestrial population remains in the dark about what is out there, and the intelligent, experienced operatives engaged in this worldwide. So let's start with Sergei's statements. The European Space Agency Mars Express space probe has been operating in orbit around the red planet for almost 20 years. It has been there since December 2003. The spacecraft helped scientists to make a detailed map of Mars, discovered methane in its atmosphere, and made many other interesting discoveries. According to the plan, the mission was to be completed in 2005. However, it is constantly being extended. One of the tasks of the probe was a series of close flybys of the Martian satellite Phobos. On March the 3rd, 2010, Mars Express passed close to the small satellite, about 27 by 22 by 19 kilometers in size, at a distance of only 50 kilometers. But what is interesting about Phobos? Oh, it's really a mysterious object, and the most interesting story about this satellite of Mars is this. Once people suggested that Phobos is an alien space station. The inner planets of the solar system have few satellites. Mercury doesn't have them at all, just like Venus. The Earth received its satellite more or less by accident as a result of a cosmic collision. And the two moons of Mars in general apparently are not real satellites. Phobos is more than 20 kilometers across, and the second satellite of Mars, Deimos, is even smaller. Both objects have an irregular shape, and they look like asteroids. In all likelihood, Mars simply appropriated two moons from the asteroid belt, looked at the Earth and grinned contentedly. He has a sense of humor, trust me. Sergei does. Phobos boasts another interesting feature. This is a large Stickney crater which was named after the wife of Asaph Hall, the discoverer of the moons of Mars in the United States. This crater is interesting because it absolutely dominates the surface of Phobos and has a diameter of 10 kilometers. But that's not all. Phobos has another feature. In the 1960s, when the orbit of Phobos was thoroughly studied, it turned out that it was approaching Mars at a rate of 5 centimeters per year. This came as a complete surprise to science. It was at that time that the first satellites were sent into space. And they didn't stay still either. They moved around the Earth in spiral orbits, all the while getting closer to it. The cause of this phenomenon was friction against the Earth's atmosphere. It is who slows down the speed of movement of artificial satellites of the Earth. And the faster, the closer they are to the ground. For this reason, by the way, low orbit spy satellites have a service life of only a few months. Now, the Soviet astronomer Iosif Shklovsky suspected a similar effect in the case of Martian satellite Phobos. It is also relatively close to Mars, and the friction of the planet's atmosphere may also have an impact on the orbit of Phobos. However, when Shklovsky calculated everything accurately, he found that this influence was too small to cause the observed slowdown of Phobos. So it could be only if only Phobos is hollow inside. If Phobos were a hollow body, then everything would come together. Wait a minute. But an asteroid or a satellite of a planet doesn't just become empty, at least if it's not an artificial object. So maybe if Phobos is hollow, then it's a space station. Perhaps it was created by some ancient Martian civilization that has long disappeared, and the traces of its former greatness have long been dissolved in the cold Martian sands. Why not? It would be quite possible, and this option was at least taken seriously enough to inform the then US President Dwight Eisenhower about it. I didn't know about it, and I studied exploration of Phobos, but I'm glad Sergei reveals it. Let's get back to his account. Other astronomers, including the famous Ernst Eppig, were also interested in this question. In 1964, he published a short article in the Irish Astronomical Journal entitled Phobos, the Nature of Acceleration. In his work, he evaluates the hypothesis put forward by Shklovsky and offers another solution to the Phobos enigma. Eppig wrote that it is not only the atmosphere that has a retarding effect on the satellite. The tidal force operating between Mars and Phobos is also involved in this process, which, reinforced by the irregular shape of the latter, leads to a loss of energy and a decrease in the diameter of its orbit. Today, science knows for sure that this assumption turned out to be correct. So what fate awaits Phobos? Eventually it will be destroyed by Mars. Today the satellite is very close to the conventional line, which is called the Roche limit. This is an area where the tidal forces become greater than the forces holding the satellite in orbit. So eventually, in a few million years, Phobos will just fall apart, and Mars will receive a temporary ring consisting of its fragments. Shklovsky, by the way, continued the search for extraterrestrial life, and even published a book together with Carl Sagan, Intelligent Life in the Universe. However, despite the fact that today science knows that Phobos is not a space station, this story still lives on a variety of pseudoscientific and conspiracy resources. And by the way, Phobos can really become a space station someday. If people ever decide to fly to Mars, then this small satellite could be an ideal base for exploring the planet. It is likely that water and other minerals may be present on Phobos. And who knows, maybe someday people will hollow out the insides of Phobos. Well, Sergei should know that the European scientists made an announcement that Phobos has hollow areas inside, but let's put it aside. So Sergei calls those who believe the moonlet to be a space station as pseudoscientific and conspiracy resources. This is good, because that means we're coming closer to the truth. When he was a preteen, I met Dr. Marina Popovich, the famous Soviet-Russian pilot, test pilot and scientist. I met her in Los Angeles. I think it was back in 1991, and she showed me very interesting photos taken by the Soviet probe before its demise. And one of the most prominent scientists in the USSR, Valery Burdakov, who was an expert in missile technologies, space exploration and rocketry, he raised alarms about the mission to Phobos, People like him and Popovich knew quite well what Phobos is, as well as some people in antiquity. As you can see in one of my videos, they had knowledge of Mars and at least one of its moonlands thousands of years ago. And Jonathan Swift and his Gulliver's Travels, and I'm sure Buzz Aldrin knows quite a lot. And I have to tell you, you gotta look at my videos about the knowledge of Soviet scientists about the ancient cities of Mars under the sands, and NASA published translation of the work of the Soviet scientists involved in the Martian research without any comments. Kudos to NASA. Why not share this with the rest of the population? I mean, you already translated it into English. Send it to universities. Anyway, I want to tell you about some news from China. Okay? Now, China doesn't talk much. China does. China extends itself all over the planet, whether we want to or not, and of course in outer space. And China is very much interested in Phobos. China's Tianwen-1 probe added to its collection of space exploration the second anniversary by taking a shot of Mars moon Phobos. The image itself actually stunning. It has a clear definition of many features of the object, and if you look at the full sunlight, or as we might call it on Earth as full moon, there are some noticeable streaks in the upper left of the photo that the Chinese took, which may indicate relatively recent impacts. In addition, a crater named for Estonian astronomer Ernst Opik is visible in the upper right of the image. Other features named after other astronomers and characters from Gulliver's Travels aren't as clear on the image, as the space around the Opik crater is largely featureless. Look, China's interest in Phobos isn't really new. It originally planned to launch its first Mars orbital station, Yinghuo-1, on a rocket also holding Russia's Phobos ground sample return missions to Mars innermost satellite. Well, unfortunately, the spacecraft failed to reach its necessary trajectory and crashed back to Earth in 2012. Tianwen-1 is China's current flagship mission to the Red Planet, with the orbital probe that snapped the picture of Phobos, comprising only one of 6 separate spacecraft that have entered the Mars system in one of the largest payloads ever to be sent to the Red Planet. They have been busily collecting novel scientific data, incredible, using a number of instruments on the rovers, landers, and their satellites. Most likely, there's not really new scientific data in the picture of Phobos that has not been captured elsewhere, as far as we know. In its current circular orbit, 6,000 kilometers above Mars' surface, there isn't much change to be had. But this emphasis on a startling, unique, moonlet, unusual, certainly provides that. These just aren't the only fantastic pictures that Yan Wen has taken. A few months ago, also, it released a complete image of the surface of Mars. Using cameras and some other components, it has even managed to take a few selfies both on and high above Mars. Its lander and rover have also been captured by the high-rise camera on NASA's Mars orbiter. So China is very keen on future Phobos exploration, because I suspect they know what is really out there. It's just they don't talk too much, and they don't try, as far as I know, to call those who try to research it as pseudo-scientists. Okay, so let's look at some interesting new theories out there. So were Phobos and Deimos once a single Martian moon that split up? The origin of Phobos and Deimos, the two Martian moons, has been a mystery to astronomers. These two bodies are a fraction of the size and mass of the moon, measuring just 22.7 kilometers and 12.6 kilometers in diameter. Both have a rapid orbital period, taking just 7 hours, 39 minutes, and 12 seconds. Phobos, and 30 hours, 18 minutes, and 43 seconds for Deimos, to complete an orbit around Mars. Both are also irregular in shape, leading many to speculate that there were once asteroids that got kicked out of the main belt and were captured by Mars gravity. There is also the theory that Phobos and Deimos were once a single moon hit by a massive object, causing it to split up, the so-called splitting hypothesis. In a recent paper, an international team of scientists, led by the Institute of Space and Astronautical Science, revisited this hypothesis. They determined that a single moon in a synchronous orbit would not have produced two satellites, as we see there today. Instead, they argued the two moons would have collided before long, producing a debris ring that would have created an entirely new moon system. The paper that describes their findings recently appeared online and should be published in the Planetary Science Journal. The research was led by Dr. Ryuki Hyodo, a researcher with the Department of Solar System Sciences at ISAS, that's the Institute of Space and Astronautical Science, a part of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. He was joined by the researchers from the Earth Life Science Institute and the Tokyo Institute of Technology, the Paris Globe Institute of Physics, and the University of Paris, and the Orbital Dynamics and Planetary Group at Sao Paulo State University. As noted, the subject of where Mars moons came from has become a hot topic of debate for astronomers in recent years. Well, historical astronomers have leaned towards the capture hypothesis, which states that Phobos and Deimos were once D-type asteroids. These are asteroids composed of organic-rich silicates, carbon and silicates that contain no water, anhydrous, that may have water ice in their interiors. This hypothesis is largely motivated by observations that revealed similarities in spectra between D-type asteroids and these moons. Alternately, the giant impact hypothesis states that an impactor struck Mars, creating a debris ring around the planet that accreted to form two rubble pile objects. This is similar to the most widely accepted theory of how the Earth-Moon system formed billions of years ago due to an impact with a Mars-sized object named Theia, also called the giant impact hypothesis. More recently, it has been proposed that Phobos and Deimos may not have been primordial objects that resulted from capture or an impact, but are the remains of a primordial moon that broke apart. This theory has been dubbed the ring moon recycling hypothesis, which was put forth in 2021 paper by Amir Hossein Bagheri and others. According to this hypothesis, this progenitor moon was ripped apart 1 to 2.8 billion years ago, either by tidal forces or an impact. The resulting debris would have formed a ring around Mars that was eventually recycled to form Phobos and Deimos. As astronomers have noted, this model presents some issues, which include the fact that Mars would still have a ring system. As Dr. Hyodo explained to Universe Today publication, he and his team noted that there are other issues. Studying the tidal evolution of the moons back in time, Bagheri and other scientists in 2021 found a solution that Phobos and Deimos could once have orbits that would cross each other. This is their evidence, saying that Phobos and Deimos were once a single moon that was split to form Phobos and Deimos. Note that if you change parameters that control the tidal evolution, the orbits of Phobos and Deimos in the past do not cross each other. The idea of Bagheri and others is based on their parameters that have resulted in orbital crossing of the past. So to test this hypothesis, Dr. Hyodo and his colleagues began with the assumption that Phobos and Deimos were once a single body. They then conducted numerical simulations that combined geophysical and tidal evolution models of a Mars satellite system. From this, said Dr. Hyodo, they determined that it was highly unlikely that Phobos and Deimos originated from a single object. In short, if Phobos and Deimos were split from a single progenitor moon, let's say 1 to 2.7 billion years ago, they would have collided within 100,000 years. This would have left Mars with another debris ring that would still be there today, rather than two irregularly shaped satellites that happen to be asteroid-like in composition. These findings have renewed the debate about where Mars moons or moonlets came from, and also suggest that it may not be resolved until sample return missions are sent to explore the Martian satellites. Several mission concepts are currently on the table. In 2008, NASA's Glenn Research Center began studying a possible sample return mission known as the Hull concept. This new Frontiers class concept would perform a sample return from Phobos and Deimos. In January 2013, scientists from Stanford University, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory began collaborating on a new Phobos Surveyor mission. The mission is currently in the testing phases with a potential launch window of 2023 to 2033. In March 2014, NASA proposed a Discovery-class mission called Phobos and Deimos and Mars Environment, which would place an orbiter on Mars in orbit by 2021 to study Phobos and Deimos. Well, a heritage concept called the Osiris-REX-2 is being considered that would use the parts from the first Osiris-REX missions, a sample return mission to the asteroid Bennu, and conduct a sample return mission from Phobos and Deimos. Beyond NASA, other space agencies also hope to send robotic spacecraft to explore the Martian satellites. In 2015, the Japanese Aerospace Exploration unveiled their concept for a sample return mission to Phobos known as the Martian Moons Exploration. This mission would conduct a Deimos flyby before landing on Phobos multiple times to obtain samples, similar to what the Hayabusa 2 mission did on asteroid Ryugu. This mission is an international in scope, with NASA and the ESA contributing, and is currently scheduled to launch in 2024 and return samples to Earth 5 years later. Russia plans to repeat its previous attempt to send sample return mission to Phobos, named Phobos Grunt. They want to do it in the late 2020s. In 2015, the European Space Agency, ESA, began assessing a sample return mission to Phobos called Footprint, which was planned for launch in 2024. This mission was originally conceived as a collaborative effort between the ESA and the Russian Space Agency Roscosmos, which has since terminated their cooperation agreements due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. From all these proposals, it is clear that multiple space agencies intend to explore the moons of Mars in the near future. The origin and subsequent evolution of these moons are considered a part of the wider effort to explore and characterize Mars. Stay tuned for more news about Phobos, because it is a celestial body that beckons terrestrial scientists as well as military space strategists, and of course civilian pseudoscientists and conspiracy theories who dare to question all those missions to Phobos and somewhat erratic development and haste in which they want to get to Phobos. If only China would speak up more, but I think they have their own aims around Mars. So we shall see. we shall see what happens and whether Russia in the future will cooperate with the European Space Agency and the USA, or just work with China or by itself. Nobody knows. And I am glad that people like Sergey show us that they're also concerned about dissemination of information about Phobos. Thank you for your attention. Please see my other videos about Phobos. It's a very interesting subject. And if you can support my research, you'll see the links in the description to this channel. Please like my video and tell others.